What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with the Metal Time Radio podcast, giving you my best rock and metal albums of 2022. Now, you may have seen me a couple weeks ago. I was on Jaxby Ripper's channel. We were kind of going through our favorite records of the year and some of the records that we listened to, even outside of that. It was just kind of a mishmash of stuff. I talked lightly about the list that I have, but I'm going to go through a little bit more in depth here. Some bands I know a little bit more about, I'm a little more familiar with. So if I have more information on those than others, just bear with me because I'm kind of, I had to put notes down because for one, as old as I'm getting now, like I can't remember everything in my head. So definitely have my list, just like bullet points of stuff that I feel about the record and the musicians involved. Real quickly, tomorrow, Thursday, I think Edgar Allan Poe and I have moved up our next episode of Poetic Carnage, where we talk sports. We'll be talking about the national championship game of college football this past Monday night, talking about the NFL playoffs coming up, and then we'll get to some other stuff where we have time. But right now, it's all about that stuff. Friday, and if you've followed me this many years with Metal Tavern, Neko and I used to do our best ofs on the podcast itself. We'd play a track from the record and then talk about them a little bit. But since we're not doing the podcast as much, that's why I'm doing it via this video, and hopefully you all enjoy. I'm trying some new things here, which I'll get to in a minute, but just bear with me. Hopefully it goes on without a hitch. But yeah, so if I have some bands in here that I don't talk as much about, it's only because I'm still kind of new to them. But as far as Friday is concerned, I'm going to try to start doing my top 100 metal songs of all time list. I've done them periodically before. As you know, lists can change. I mean, I even now when I think to the list that I have, I'm like, should I have added this song? But, I could do like a top 500. I'm sure anybody could. So I had to do my best with my top 100 of how I feel right now. So I think it's 100 through 80 or 81 that I'll be doing on Friday, hopefully getting that first part out of the way, and then I'll get to the next one when I can. But instead of the weekly stuff, it's more just if Neko and I feel like we want to do something, or if I'm doing something off the cuff, like maybe a black metal show or whatever. But right now, it's just mainly the YouTube stuff. I'm doing my top 5 albums of the week still, so I just put up a new one for this week. Go check it out on our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. It helps out for us, obviously. But let's get into my top rock and metal albums of 2022. So, starting off, I've got Skid Row's The Gang's All Year. Now, this is a U.S. hard rock band. Started out around 1987-88. Their debut self-titled was a stellar record. Sebastian Bach on vocals. Slave to the Grind, the follow-up. I didn't really like the whole record, but the one thing I appreciate about Skid Row then was that they showed you that they can actually cross over into metal, because Slave to the Grind is like a very kick-ass fast song. It shows they got some chops that they can really pick it up when they want to. They had 3 records after Slave to the Grind that I have not heard. Now, it's just because I haven't got around to it, and I kind of forgot about the band for a while. So I can't tell you if those other 3 records are bad or good. But the new record, The Gang's All Here, also features a new vocalist, and it's Eric Gronwall. And I read up on him before I heard the record, and I was like, this would be interesting because Sebastian's not there. So when I started listening to the record, I'm like, wow, this guy's got some great vocals. Like, he can really do the work. Like, I'd be curious to see how he sings the older material, because that doesn't sound like he's going to have any trouble with that. And I'm sure they've already been touring a little bit. So for those who are watching this, who've gone out and seen Skid Row recently, let me know what you think of their live shows with Eric. But I do want to give you a little taste. What I've done is I'm going to throw up their artwork for the record. And then I'm just going to play like a 30-second piece of a track on there, whatever song I chose for this. Excuse me, getting thirsty. So I'm going to give you a little taste of each record that I have in my list for 2022. So let's start with Skid Row here. And like I said, I'm trying something new, so we'll see how it goes and plays out. Hopefully, it's going to be pretty good. So yeah, so I have to be careful because obviously don't want to do any copyright. I don't think any of the bands on my list would have a problem with me giving a little morsel of what they've got to offer on the record. But YouTube's very picky, and I have to be careful. Even with when we do our top fives of the week, we only give you snippets, and I know some people are like, it's not long enough to know whether it's good or bad. I mean, look, I try here, okay. But this should be 30 seconds is longer than we usually give, so hopefully it still passes the test, and hopefully the bands don't mind. Some of the bands on the list I'm friends with, so I don't think they'd ever give me any problems about it at all. But I'm sure the other bands, since it's metal, like it's not like I'm playing Britney Spears for you or any shit like that. So I don't expect to get any flags on that. The next band up is Annihilation Process. Their debut EP, Sickening Madness. It's a U.S. thrash band. The brainchild is the guitarist Mike Dreyer, who also has played with Condition Critical, Lich King, and Dustbolt. I found out about this band through Crypt on Metalomania when he was interviewing Mike and debuting that track. And I was really excited because I really like Demented Groceries a lot. So waiting for this EP to come out, I was excited. And sure enough, it made my list. So I fell in love with this EP right away. So I'm going to give you a little bit of taste of Annihilation Process. So yeah, there's a little bit of taste of Annihilation Process. Next up, Howling in the Fog. It's a post-metal black metal band from Italy. Has a brainchild and sole creator is Der Antichrist Seelen Mord. And I don't know what his real name is. That's probably just his stage name. But project has been around. This project's been around since 2010 with 9 full lengths, counting this one here, Reflections. And what I love about the new record is that it really showcases the bridge between harsh black metal vocals and the very melodic and intricate compositions that in some ways remind me a little bit of Devin Townsend's later works. Like if you've heard Light Work, the latest from Devin Townsend, this artist is able to kind of incorporate a little bit of a sound like that while adding in the black metal vocals and the black metal sound that he's known for through his earlier works. This album is just very beautiful all the way through. I get more and more into like, you'll probably hear me talk about a little bit like over the last 15 or so years, I've kind of drifted away from black metal in general, outside of a few things. I started out really liking like symphonic black metal when I first got introduced to like Emperor and Dimmu Borgir. And then I just kind of for like from 97 to 2006, I was kind of like just diving all into the black metal stuff, just checking it out, eating it up as much as I could. And then I got kind of tired of it, outside of like maybe atmospheric black metal, post black metal, like Howling in the Fog, or pagan and Viking black metal, experimental avant garde black metal. So stuff that I think is a little more interesting in the genre. I do like Black Death. There are like traditional black metal bands I do like, and there's albums that I really do like. But over the last 15 or 20 years, I just found myself more into the thrash, deathier side of stuff than I was. Even more so in the last 5 years, I've kind of dived more into the more classic, traditional heavy metal stuff. So Chris Hupp, who is a guy on Facebook who sells like CDs and stuff through his little label of distribution, has introduced me to a lot of cool shit through his Facebook page and stuff like that. So I'm checking different things out. But yeah, this record's really, really good. Reflections is very beautiful, beautifully written. And I look forward to whatever he does going after this. I have to go back and check out some of his earlier works. I probably have some of that stuff, just from various MP3s or whatever, but because it sounds very familiar, and I know this band's been around for a little while now. So let's get a check here. We're gonna check it out here. I think the song's called Mantra. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a taste of Howling in the Fog. Next up, Blood Os Nord. They're atmospheric avant-garde black metal band from France. They do have a little bit of ambient through some of their catalog. It's a trio of musicians, and really, I talked about how from 97 to 2006, I was diving into all the black metal stuff, trying to find what bands worked for me and what others didn't, looking for albums that I really liked. Blood Os Nord, their first two releases, Ultima Thule and Memoria Vetusta, Part 1, are classic records. I think those are from like 95, 96, and really fell in love with those records really fast. Now, over the course of the next 20 years, they put out some other records. Some are hit or miss. I mean, most of them were kind of missed. They were kind of doing different things here and there. But with the new record, I found that it's called Disharmonium Undreamable Abysses. I found that this was kind of like a nod back to the first two records, just in terms of feel when I listened to it. And that's the one thing I appreciate about this album and the first couple, is that the way it makes me feel and how effective it is on my psyche when I'm sitting there listening to it. It's just a lot of cool soundscapes, the way they compose the riffs and the background atmosphere is just phenomenal, really. So let's get a little bit of listen to Blood Os Nord's newest release. All right. Next up, Rib Spreader, Crypt World, Swedish death metal. Been following the band for a while. They're not necessarily one of my favorite bands in the genre itself, and I oftentimes kind of forget about them being there. But they have some quality work. If as far as like, I don't want to really say if it's A grade or B grade, but as I said, like, just they're not one band that I would put above other death metal bands, but I do enjoy their work. So I really enjoyed the newest one a lot. I think it's actually one of their better records of their catalog. So it's called Crypt World by Rib Spreader, death metal band. Next on the list, Depressed Mode, Symphonic Death Doom from Finland. Their newest record, Decade of Silence. Now that's going to be kind of funny when we get to that. First got into this band in 2007 when I heard their cover of Burzum's Dunkelheit off their debut record, Ghosts of Devotion. And their follow-up, 2009, For Death, was equally as good as that. Like, those are really, really great records. I think they're both like 10 out of 10s. So now we have like 3 10 out of 10s because their third release is the one they just put out. And, but it took them like 10 years. So hence the title, Decade of Silence. But I've always enjoyed the way they string together the compositions, as well as sometimes they mix in some very cool female vocal work. I don't know if it's a guest vocalist, because I think the band is just a 4-piece of guys, but they obviously involve other musicians probably here and there. And I do hear a female's voice throughout their records, so there's somebody that's contributing in that aspect. But yeah, it's very cool stuff. I've always enjoyed them. Kind of lost track of them because they weren't putting anything out, and then I was surprised when I saw the new one. So yeah, I want to give you a taste of Depressed Mode. All right. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that little clip. Next up, Obiat, stoner doom metal band out of Poland. And the band itself is really new to me. I don't recognize them at all, but they've been around since 2002, so that's pretty good. The one thing I really enjoy about this record, Indian Ocean, that they just put out, is despite the fact that they're like a stoner doom metal band, they have this knack of sort of creating a rock or classic rock vibe within it. And I don't know if that kind of stuff is intentional or not, because there's another band I'll be talking about later that does a similar thing. But whenever I'm like in a rock mood, like if I'm listening to hard rock, classic rock, alternative, whatever, you could literally put in Obiat's music from, at least from the new record, in there, and it's not like it changes the momentum or the beats that much. Like it fits in nicely, despite being like a different genre altogether. So really, really enjoy them. This record's really cool. I got to go back and check out the earlier releases, but certainly something for people to take notice of, in my opinion. So let me give you a little taste of Obiat. That's Obiat. Next up, Seven Kingdoms with Zenith, U.S. power thrash heavy metal band out of the U.S. I first heard about them probably 1 or 2 years ago. There was a video on YouTube where they're doing a cover of Heart's Barracuda. Excellent cover. Like, I already love that song a lot from Heart. It's my favorite Heart song, and the fact that a band's been able to do a cover that and do it justice and almost give it like a lot more power behind it is fucking amazing. And I can't really remember because they've been around for a little while, a few years now, and I don't know if I've ever heard their previous material or not. They don't sound familiar in that regard, but when I got a chance to check out Zenith, like I really enjoyed it, and the way that they're able to do like different styles as well. They got the heavy metal part of it, and then they can do a hard rock part of it. In fact, the song I'm going to play for you has that hard rock vibe. Being a guy from the '80s who grew up in more hard rock stuff before diving into metal, that's kind of like where I was coming from. And so, whenever a band's able to do that, a modern metal band, rock band, I find that very intriguing and cool. And plus, Sabrina Valentine's vocals are just on fire on this record. Like, she's a great vocalist, very powerful, and I really enjoy it a lot. So here's a little taste of Seven Kingdoms. All right. Now I do apologize. Some of these clips don't have any of the vocal work in it, but again, I have to be careful just for copyright reasons, and don't want to get myself in trouble with any of the bands or any YouTube or whatever. So I'm just giving you little morsels of what's out there. Just I do highly recommend all these records. So regardless of what you hear, if you kind of feel like you dig it, check them out. I'm sure they got some clips on YouTube with their full songs. So be sure to do that as well. Next band up is another band from the U.S., stoner doom metal band. This is the other band I was talking about, which has an ability to sort of give this vibe of classic rock and stuff like that incorporated into their music, their style of doom metal. They've been around since 2008. Have not heard anything up until Beast Remains from 2018, I believe, which I really liked that record. So when this one came out, I jumped on it to listen to it, and of course, fell in love with it as well. So yeah, this is Freedom Hawk with Take All You Can. And if you dig like bands that kind of do that rocky stuff, this is one of those bands you should really check out. Freedom Hawk. All right, next up on our list. Might be a little bit controversial with metal fans. Not everybody's a fan of these guys, but I'm going to give reasons why I am. And that is Striper, The Last Battle, their newest opus, a rock heavy metal band from the US. Backstory with them is my very first concert when I was 17. So we're going back to 1987. This is when I'm still like just very much so into the hard rock and glam rock and stuff like that. And, I grew up in a Christian household. And so even though I don't have any particular faith or ideology myself, I was subjected to being raised in a Christian home. So it didn't always go well. I have my issues with Christianity on some level. Obviously, I don't have any problems with Christians. I know that some people are good people, but not everybody is as good as their faith that they portray to have. So I'll just leave that at that. But when it comes to the band itself, I don't necessarily have to agree so much or connect with the lyrical content with the band as I do with the musicianship and the vocals of Michael Sweet. Like, they are very, very talented. And in '87, they were my first concert. I saw them headlining with Loudness and TNT at Red Rocks in Colorado. And I was just blown away. I enjoyed the shit out of it. Like, just the band itself, as much as they can kick ass, if you can find ways to kind of get around the lyrical part of it, you probably could enjoy the music a lot. Now, At first, I was going to say one of my problems with Striper was that their lyrics aren't really open ended or not able to be interpreted by the listener. Now, I was reading a review recently of their fourth record or fifth record, Against the Law, in '90. And the reviewer had said that that record, they had actually kind of broadened and gone outside of that box of always, saying Jesus or Christ or whatever, and left it to interpretation. It was still positive messages, but it was interpretation. So it's sort of like POD or Demon Hunter, where it's not really screaming Jesus at you. It's just, they give you an option to take the song however you see it fits for yourself. So I will probably end up going back. I actually have Against the Law on cassette somewhere, but I will probably go back and listen to that record because I remember after In God We Trust, I kind of just lost interest with the band. I wasn't connecting as much as Soldiers Under Command or To Hell with the Devil. Those are really great records for me. Then in 2005, like they put out, and I guess another record in '96, I think. Am I looking at this right? No, '90. So Against the Law is the last one they had done up until Reborn, which is 2005. And again, at that point, Reborn through the album before, Goddamn Devil, like hit or miss. There is a cool album they do of covers, which is really great. I do some Priest on there, some Sweet. So there's some good shit in there with that. They do a really good job with that. It's not that they didn't have any songs on those records I didn't really enjoy. It's just overall the records weren't hitting me like some of the early stuff. But then when Goddamn Devil came out in 2018, I saw the band kind of hit another gear. Like it was getting back to punchier songs. They were actually branching out into heavy metal space again. Like it was starting to get very aggressive. Something that I saw even on the last record. I think the song was In the Valley of the Kings. You just saw them kind of going into heavy metal territory. But they still have a foundation in hard rock, which is cool. And of course, the final battle here, this album, man, just brings me back to the old days. Like it just has a lot of songs that I could see being hits, even though metal and rock of that type isn't really accepted on the mainstream as much anymore. And you probably won't even hear it on mainstream radio because they rarely play hard rock bands as it is unless they're like manufactured, as I call it. But if you're someone like me, look, I'm very open-minded about music. I try not to hold anyone's ideology against them or their lyrical content. So I like black metal, but I don't care about the Satanism or any of that other shit. Like I don't live my life as a Satanist. But I appreciate the music. I appreciate the darkness and the grittiness of it all musically. And obviously the symbolism of Satanism and rebellion and everything has been a melt for it forever. But I just find myself like not being as close-minded about Christian bands as some people because the reality is you kind of need some positivity here and there. And if a band who's a Christian band can write music that's just more based on interpretation, so even if the band themselves are singing about Christ and everything else, if they're saying whatever their lyrical content is basically relates to my life in some way that's not even religious, and I could just take it a different way, then that's a plus. Like if I still see the positivity in it, great. And I think that works for bands. And Striper, hopefully they've kind of learned a little bit with that. I mean, I know on a new record and some of the other ones, they still say Christ and Jesus. That's fine. I don't have any problems with that. But I do think that when you're leaving your songs more open-ended, it allows for a broader reach of people. And it doesn't really shun them or shut them off. Because most people, when they start hearing Jesus and all that, they're just like, fuck this shit. They don't want to deal with it. But strong record. I'm glad the band is back. I'm glad they came back in 2005. I was really excited. So just one of those bands that stuck with me forever. from from the 80s, and I don't shy away from it at all. People poke fun at me for liking them, but it is what it is, son. All right, let's give a taste of Striper's new stuff. And if you didn't know, that was Michael Sweet's Great Scream. uh yeah, so that was Transgressor. You can actually find that single and video on YouTube right now. It's great stuff. Great stuff. All right, our next band up is Corpsest, and it's a death metal band out of Finland. Much like Rid Spreader, I do really like this band. I just don't, when I think of death metal, I think of other bands first. But I will tell you that they've had 3 other records, not including the new one, since 2014, and they're all good, all solid. Like they're all in like the 9 and 10 range. If I'm doing my rating scale at a 1 out of 10, they're all 9s and 10s, and this one being a 10, this is definitely their best one to date. It's called Succumb to Rot, and I'm gonna give you a little taste of that right now. No, you haven't. Succumb to Rot. All right, next band up. This band needs no introduction. If you've seen our intro and outro to our shows, you will know we are friends with and big fans of Nomos, U.S. death grindcore out of D.C., U.S. I've known guitarist John. I'm going to try not to get any emotional here because I've known this guy like well over 20 years. He is in some ways like a little brother to me. I don't see him all the time. I definitely with NECA, we try to get out as many shows as possible, but we do have this thing called life, and so we can't always make every show. But we have always been very supportive of John, his projects. He's had very many since I met him when he was 19. I was probably about 30 something at that point. And, he is probably one of the most passionate, talented guitarists and musicians I've ever met in my life. Like, he's just that good. And I'm not talking he has to be like, Yngwie Malmsteen or Satriani, but talent is far more than just wankery, in my opinion. So, he's a great songwriter, period. He may be kind of embarrassed about some of his older projects. I won't bring him up. I don't want to do that to him, but he's put his hand in different projects before. But I tell you personally and honestly, everything he touches is gold, because I say to myself, well, man, if this project would have gotten noticed, he would have been a star. Like, some of the stuff he was doing was good enough for mainstream platforms. Now, his heart's always been into the heavier, darker stuff. And Nomos, without a doubt, is his most successful project to date, and for good reason. Whether it's notoriety or just the fact that he's got a solid group of cast around him. You got Henry on drums, Roger on vocals, Patrick on bass. These guys are all humble, they're fun, and they're dedicated to their art. And I'm just very proud of what he's accomplished, and all of them, but John especially because I've known him the longest, of what they've accomplished as a band. Now they have this is their first full length. It's called Consume, Deny, Repent. But they also have a split, a demo, and 2 EPs prior to this, and all that stuff is good. Like if you ever go on Bandcamp or whatever, get it. It's good. It's worth it. I know there's a couple of tracks that came off some of the older EPs that are on the new record, but their brand of music and grindcore and death is some thrashy riffage, reminiscent of like maybe classic Sepp or Creator, and they got a little bit of Napalm Death in them as far as the death metal aspect. And they're live, like you can hear them on record and you say to yourself, wow, these guys are awesome. But until you see them fucking live, it's fucking nuts. And my dream got fulfilled last May in Baltimore at MDF, was to see these guys play MDF, Maryland Death Fest. And just for like context, most bands that play at like 1 and 2 in the afternoon at MDF don't usually have big crowds because most of them end up coming towards the evening when the bigger headliners and everything start coming in. So some of these bands that, despite being good, don't always have big groups of people to see them play because there's just so much. It's hard. I'm going to talk about a band later that played at MDF in 2017 that I didn't even catch because I just didn't know who they were, and I was busy watching other bands that I wanted to see more. And that's a conundrum that you face with festivals, unfortunately. But watching Nomos play at 2 p.m. in the afternoon to kick off, I forget what day it was, it might have been Thursday or Friday. That was a packed house at Soundstage, and I was so proud of those guys. And they didn't let down at all. Like they busted their ass and they played a fucking amazing show. And couldn't be happy for all of them. And John especially, he's worked so hard to get to this point. And I just hope I hope the momentum just keeps going. Just keeps going for him because he deserved it. Period. He's a hard worker. And he, like I said, he's passionate about this, and I'm just so happy for him. Really am. So without further ado, here's some Nomos, a little bit of morsel of that coming your way. I think I forgot to edit that one, but that's okay. I had so much music to try to edit down. I guess somebody somehow missed one of the bands that actually have some of the shortest songs. So go fucking figure, right? But it's Nomos, so we don't care. All right. Next band on my list. And if you're wondering why it takes me a little bit longer to get to the sound check, because I've got like my album art on one part of StreamYard, and then all my songs at the bottom. So I have to scroll down to find where the song is that I need for that particular band. So, like I said, this whole process is new to me. maybe in the future I can figure a better way of doing this. I wanted to do like the side by side, and StreamYard doesn't offer that. I don't know why. You could do it through other means, like open up another browser, but that's just clutter. I don't want to fuck with all that. Anyway, next band on the list is Flames with their new album Resurgence, thrash death metal out of Greece. I was kind of a late bloomer with this band initially. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I checked out their first two records from the 80s that are deemed classics, and they are indeed classics. They're very good. They do have 4 other records. I think I've only dived into 2 of the other ones. I haven't really gone full throttle with the other stuff yet. But Resurgence, it's I think 96 was the last record up until this year. So it's been a while. So kind of like Depressed Mode, there's like this break that they took, but it's interesting because both bands didn't miss a beat at all. Like just in terms of quality music and musicianship, it's just amazing. So here's a taste of Flames. You did probably see this on my top 5 because I picked 5 records out of this group a while back that I did a little clip for. This was one of them. So here's a little taste of Flames. Yeah. I will say good news about the Nomos song. If for whatever reason YouTube tries to give me grief about it, I'm just going to look, the band doesn't care. They've told me from day one that I have free use for any of the material they have. So love to them for that. Next is another band. In fact, the next 2 bands are both in my top 5 of the group, as well as the Nomos, of course. Next one is Schizophrenia, Recollections of the Insane. I know this ended up on Crypt's best of list as well. Death thrash band out of Belgium. This is their debut record, in fact. And it was earlier in the year, 2022, when I discovered this record, and it just stuck and it stayed on there. And really, really enjoyed the shit out of it. It's a great record. I'll be looking forward to what they do in the future. But let's get a little bit of a taste of some Schizophrenia. There you go. Schizophrenia. Next band. I know I got a lot of lists here, let me tell you. Werewolves. Technical Black Death from Australia with From the Cave to the Grave. I know. People who know me well, they know that when I see like a band name, cover art, or a song that deals with werewolves, I'm going to check it out. For whatever reason, I'm just drawn. I love werewolves. I love the lore, love the movies. It's just something I've always loved werewolves. Of course, some of that plays into my Anubis thing and like, the dog and all that good shit. So somehow, whenever they just catch my attention. But some cases with bands that, have either werewolf topics or songs or artwork or even the name aren't always that great. Like, I'll check them out and I'll be like, yeah, not really into that. These guys are not that case at all. These guys hit hard, hit fast, and are unrelenting in their presentation of music, as you'll be hearing soon. There are no gimmicks, and this is their 3rd release. But I would strongly suggest that you all check out the other 2 as well, because each one of them is great stuff. Great stuff. Really good band. Highly recommended. So here's a little bit of taste of Werewolves from Australia. There you have it. Werewolves. All right. What we got there? 2, 4, 6, 7 more bands. Go figure, man. It's been a big year for metal for me. I mean, I usually have long lists anyway, but nothing like this year. This past year has been like a really good year for some reason, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. You need good rock and metal records, man, and I'm very happy with the releases this year. So maybe 2023 will be even bigger. We'll see. Next up, Selkyu with Pariah. It's an avant-garde black metal band from Portugal. Their brainchild and composer, Nuno Lourenço. Now, for those that don't know, I did do an interview with Nuno. I've known him very long while now, going years, like back to at least 2014 or 15. Neko and I love him to death. He's a great dude, very talented, great at creating stuff. He has different projects as well outside of this. A couple of them are like Zero and None, Thermal Haline or Haline. I don't know how they pronounce that. He's very much rooted in the black metal stuff. He did have an earlier project that was kind of death metal-y, but he really loves his black metal stuff. So Sawq is definitely in that regard, and it's crazy because this project has like 10 full lengths, 5 EPs, and 2 singles, and I recommend it all. Definitely my favorite project by Nuno here, and it's not uncommon for him when he does a Sawq record that it doesn't make my best of list. In fact, I think over the years, at least 4 or 5 of them have made my best of. Like even if the ones that weren't on my best of, they're probably still like 9s. Like that's usually I'm only doing 10 out of 10s, but he doesn't put out shitty work. Let me tell you, really, really good stuff. Great guy, great talent. He actually started doing some AI work where he's creating AI art, and he's even more talented than that too. So it's like the guy's just all around great talent guy. Like he can do a lot of different stuff. And he did pull out another full length last year called "The Colossal Weight of My Illusion," which is still very good. It's close on that bridge, right? But Pariah to me was like it just stuck with me the entire year, and I just really, really love that record. So I'm gonna give you a taste of Sawq, and you'll hear what it's all about. So there you have it, Sawq. And the cool thing about Sawq too is like the project he like incorporates sometimes horns and stuff. So you didn't hear it in that particular song, but it's pretty wild some of the stuff that he's able to do and experiment with in his songs. So check it out. Next up, Needless, the Cosmic Cauldron. This is coming from Thrash Death from Hungary. I don't know a whole lot about the band. They do have a 2019 release called Heresy, which I have not heard, but this record caught my attention earlier in the year, and thought it was worthwhile, and it never left my list. There was a couple other bands that I had on my best of at one point that just kind of fell off after a while, maybe because I didn't feel as strongly about them as I initially did, but this band remained, and we're going to check it out. Needless. So there's Needless. Now, the next band, I was telling you earlier that they appeared on MDF in 2017. That is Father Befouled. They've been around for a little bit of a while, but I hadn't paid much attention to them, didn't know much about them. They are a U.S. death metal band. And the thing that caught my attention with this record, which is Crowned and Veneficum, is at times they sound like classic Morbid Angel, and some people thought that was like a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing if you're just trying to copy said band, but when it's just like influence into your music rather than straight riff copiage or whatever, I think there is a difference. And so I just, again, is when I listen to the record, no matter if they're paying homage to like, you know, their influences and whatever, with Morbid Angel, I'm sure is an influence. It's just great. Like, I love it. Like, I just love that dedication, that tribute in a way. And it comes out, and their songwriting is all their own. So it's not like they're like, again, they're not ripping off anybody, but you can hear the influence, and it's just cool shit. So I really love that about that band and that record. We'll definitely have to go back though, check out some of the earlier works. I don't know much about them outside of that. So let's give you a little bit of that. Jumping ahead of myself. There you have it. All right. Getting down to the nitty gritty. Told you this was a work in progress, so hopefully you guys are enjoying it. My next band up is Skeptic, Nailed to Ignorance, a tech death metal band out of Poland. First heard about this band in 2001 with their record Pathetic Being, which is highly regarded in the metal community. Kind of lost track of them after that record. Just, you know, so much music, so little time. Now, 16 years later, from their 2005 release, I wasn't sure what to expect. But again, this is much like the other two bands I talked about earlier, Depressed Mode and Flames, is that gap, and you're thinking, wow, is it going to be worth it? You know, so it's great. Like, I love the fact that these bands are still hitting out of high gear. I mean, I don't want to have to wait another 16 years for a release, but the fact that I'm still here and they put out a new record is great. I didn't know if that was going to make my list this year, but I really, really enjoyed it. So here's a little taste of Skeptic's new one. Hope you enjoy it. All right, next up, Thulsa Doom, death metal from Italy. New record, A Fate Worse Than Death. Let's see. I think, yeah, this is their debut record. They had an EP back in 2018, but this is actually their first full length. And look, I made from the beginning, much like Werewolves, that the name got my attention. I'm a big Conan the Barbarian fan with Schwarzenegger and, of course, James Earl Jones playing Thulsa Doom, the villain. So I became intrigued with the name alone. Even so, like for those that don't know anything beyond me, I play World of Warcraft, and my guild's name is Assassins of Thulsa Doom, so that just tells you how much I really like the character. But so when the band caught my name, I wanted to check them out, and it not only made my top 5 album of the week, which I posted a while back, but of course made my best of list. And just really, really good stuff. I'm not sure if it's going to be one of those bands that's going to take over. Like, I know I'm going to be checking out the new Obituary album soon, and that's a band that I've loved since I was a kid. So it's hard for some bands to like overtake my classic stuff, but you never know. Thulsa Doom's getting started. They're early in their career, so we'll see how it goes for the future for them. But it's a good start, and it's really good. So I'm gonna give you a little more taste of Thulsa Doom. There you go. Down to the last 2. One of these bands, of course, actually both these bands made top 5 albums of the week. Accusator actually made my top 5 of the group. But that's the last one we'll get to. Before that, Cobra Side, Inner Aggression, thrash death metal from Belgium. A little late bloomer to my best of list for this year, for 2022. Don't know a whole lot about them, obviously, but very cool band. I really enjoyed them a lot. It caught me off guard. Wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. So here we go with a little bit of a taste of them. Cobra Side. There's Cobra Side. I think that's the same song I used in the top 5 week one too. So it's a good track. All right, down to our last band, Accusator, Trial by Fire. It's thrash metal from Finland. Probably the first band to make my list of 2022 way back. It was early in the year. I was immediately starstruck with them, with the whole record, and I love me some quality thrash, and these guys did not disappoint. Initially did not realize this is their debut record, so much like Thulsa Doom are off to a great start. Looking forward to anything they're doing in the future. But yeah, here's a little taste of Accusator again. There you have it. my best of 2022 rock and metal albums. I hope you all enjoyed this. Uh, Maybe I get a little bit better utilizing my shit, but yeah, that's my list, and I'm sticking to it. Hope you all have a great weekend. Be sure to look out for Poetic Carnage. I think it's episode 6, 5 or 6 that's coming out soon for tomorrow. If you're into sports, may not be. And Friday, can never make promises, but I'm hoping to have my first part of my top 100 metal songs of all time on the podcast, which I'll be posting. It updates on the website now at metaltavernradio.com. So you'll see a link there underneath the radio player. There's a link there that will take you to Podbean or let you listen to the actual podcast. So it'll update every time we do a new podcast for you. So thank you all. Appreciate you sticking with us. Subscribe, like, much like. I need likes. Share, do whatever. Hope you enjoy the bands. If you go out and check them all out, hopefully, give them some love. And see you next time, man. Keep it metal. If you got any recommendations, be sure to drop it down in the comment section. I appreciate that because I'm always looking, check out new stuff when I can, or even giving your own top 10 list or whatever. So stay metal and keep it fucking brutal, man.